Welcome to the Mount Pleasant Podcast, featuring discussions and interviews about the people, places, and events that make Mount Pleasant such a special place.
This is the Mount Pleasant Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Cleary, and all thanks to the great people of Mount Pleasant Magazine, I get the honor, the privilege of introducing you to Mount Pleasant, the people who make it such a special place to do business, to work, and even to live. We're introducing you to Mount Pleasant's best on the Mount Pleasant Podcast. Is now a great time to buy a home, to sell a home? That's a question I have to think is asked by some person probably every day of every month of every year. So today we thought we'd give you an answer and perhaps a little bit of real estate education here on the Mount Pleasant Podcast. This is where the pages of Mount Pleasant Magazine come alive. And I'm Brian Cleary, joined today by Janon German. Janon works in the real estate business, but Janon, you're not just any realtor. You are Charleston's Concierge Realtor. Explain to everyone what that means.
Well, I have a background in hospitality. During college, I worked at hotels here locally, even got an opportunity to work down at Walt Disney World as a front office manager, and I managed concierge reps there. And that being my background, hospitality, I love giving people what they need. And so I bring that to the real estate practice. I make sure that they know about what's what in the area. I take really good care of them from beginning to end. And I make sure your experience is an elevated experience with me.
So let me get back to my opening question then. Is now a good time for someone to buy or sell a home?
Yeah, it's perfect. I mean, there's never going to be ideal conditions. I mean, we know what's happening in the market right now. We know what's happening with the economy, but I always try to personalize it. What might be right for you may not be right for another person. So I sit down with you, we look at your financials, we talk about what your long-term goals are. And if the time is right, it's right. And move now while you can, because it may be different not too long away.
So as you look at the real estate landscape across the low country now, is it more a buyer's or a seller's market? Or at the end of the day, does that not really matter to you?
At the end of the day, that does not really matter. I mean, we're seeing a big, huge spike in inventory. We're seeing a lot of folks move into the area because Charleston's amazing. So you just have to do what's right for you at the right time.
So buying a home is not a simple process. So I'm a first-time home buyer. If you wouldn't mind, take me through some things. Give me some tips. You've got all this knowledge. Give me some idea of what I should know as I go into that first time.
So as a first-time home buyer, I tell people to start with your wish list. I know a lot of realtors may not say that, but I want people to get what their heart desires or as close to. So have a list of some ideas of what it is that you'd like to have, and then also consider your budget. I also recommend that you go and get pre-approved. So come with me. I work with a ton of amazing lenders in the area, and we'll look very closely at your finances to see how much you qualify, and then we can start the home search from there. And like I said, there's tons of homes. Charleston has a beautiful lifestyle, whether you want to live by the beach or maybe somewhere in a condo, downsizing. There's something for everybody here.
So budget, you led with that. Obviously, that's hugely important. I know personally, I'd like to own one of those $1 million Isle of Palms homes right there on the beach, but that's probably not in my budget. Is there any kind of formula? Should I be thinking, okay, here's how I know what I can afford? Right.
Well, to get the precise details on that, you do want to speak to a mortgage professional. But I tell people kind of look at your budget, your income versus what you expend on your utilities and your credit card bills. Try to keep your debt as low as possible, because that will certainly help. I also think that it's important to have a really good cushion for savings. Like there's definitely going to be closing costs that you have to consider. In this climate now, things have changed slightly, so buyers may be responsible for paying commissions, but it's important to work with the right realtor to guide you to the right home.
We're talking some real estate today, and we've gone to the expert. Charleston's Concierge Realtor is Janon German. who joins us today here on the Mount Pleasant podcast. This is where the pages of Mount Pleasant Magazine come alive. I'm Brian Cleary. Thank you so much for joining us. Janon, when we talk about Mount Pleasant, you're someone who's got some pretty deep roots here in the town of Mount Pleasant.
Absolutely. I was born and raised right here in this area, from Mount Pleasant originally. I like to tell people that, the roots go way, way back. My grandfather on my dad's side, he was the Reverend Janon German, very notable person here in the community. He lived to be 101, and all of those years were spent here. He lived his life here, worked at the shipyard, was a pastor of several churches. My mom's side of the family, very similar things. And even my parents, they met when Moultrie was a high school. And because of that, here I am.
Still a lot of family for you in the area?
Still a lot of family in the area. And that's what brought me back. I had moved away during and after college, but there's no place like home. I have amazing memories here. I had a beautiful childhood full of history and being able to take advantage of the beach and beautiful weather. And that's part of the reason why I do real estate, because I want to share that with other families. It's an amazing place to raise your kids. It's an amazing place to be. And if I can help in any way, that's what I want to do.
Hey, I'm Richard Thomason. I am co-owner of the Bohemian Bowl restaurant in North Highway 17. We've been advertising in Mount Pleasant Magazine since we opened, and the returns have been fantastic. The quality of the magazine is unbelievable. I'm so proud to be represented in the Best of Mount Pleasant section for the accomplishments of my staff, and we invite you to come out and Bohemian Bowl and see why.
You're listening to the Mount Pleasant podcast.
Now, you mentioned that you had worked for Walt Disney. I guess that's what at first took you away from the Lowcountry. Tell me a little bit about working for the Mouse.
Oh, it was the best experience ever. I mean, the training grounds of this Fortune 100 company is unmatched. So I got tons of training on customer service and elevating the guest experience. And those things stick with you. That never really goes away. But I had an amazing time. While I was there, I got to manage the front office. So basically the front desk at a couple of hotels and resorts there. And a lot of people don't realize Walt Disney World is more than just Mickey Mouse and theme parks. I was a part of the Disney Vacation Club, which is Disney's timeshare, if you will, fractional real estate ownership. And that also was an introduction to the real estate market and how it works. Slightly different, but that was my first experience with it. So after 10 long years, I stepped away to come back home.
My next oldest brother and his family, members of the Disney Vacation Club, they spend a lot of time in Disney at the parks having some fun. What about you? Did you get some opportunity to spend some time Epcot, the Magic Kingdom?
Yes. I mean, it was a weekly occurrence. Sometimes we'd leave on our lunch breaks to go into the Magic Kingdom, grab a hot dog at Casey's on the corner, and then shoot back over to work. I mean, just amazing experiences. I also, while working with the Disney Vacation Club, got to travel on board the cruise ships. So a part of my job was to do the same thing on board the ship. So we would sail out to the Caribbean or Mexico, and I would be doing my same job, closing paperwork and explaining the vacation club and how it works on board the ship. So amazing experiences that I couldn't trade for the world.
Well, when it comes to cruise lines, people who have sailed Disney cruise lines will tell you the experience is just head and shoulders above because, again, that personal service that you think of with Disney and obviously the kind of service that you're offering to your clients as well. One other thing on Disney, though. So if you went to the park, were you a Mr. Toad's Wild Ride person? It's a Small World. Where if you had to go to one Disney ride, what would it be?
So I am a bit of a thrill seeker. So I like Space Mountain. I can never get enough of Space Mountain. Expedition Everest over at Animal Kingdom. Love it. And just adrenaline junkie. So that's where I'd go. But for nostalgia reasons, the teacups have my heart.
You can't beat the teacups. Right, we are talking today with Charleston's Concierge Realtor, She is Janon German, and she is our guest today here on the Mount Pleasant podcast. Thanks so much for joining us here where the pages of Mount Pleasant magazine come alive. She is 100% Mount Pleasant, although, Janon, you obviously serve the real estate market all over the Lowcountry.
All over. I mean, growing up here, there's not any area that I don't know about. As we grow, there's new areas that are developing, and I've got my fingers on all of it.
Having been here, and you mentioned the fact that your grandfather here 101 years, you've seen a lot of change in the Mount Pleasant area, the explosion of growth. That's got to be a positive for the real estate market, although that also means prices going up. I guess that's something that you end up juggle with your clients depending on whether they're buying or selling.
Right. Again, it's all about personalization, and I make sure that it's right for you. I'm not going to put someone in a position where they're not comfortable financially or they're not comfortable with the lifestyle that they may end up with because of the area. We can find something for you no matter where you need to be.
Now, one of the ways I see that you stand above some other realtors maybe in the area is the fact that you really seem to embrace social media. So on one hand, can you talk a little bit about how the evolution of social media has changed what you do? And then talk about some of the things, I mean, you've got videos, you're on Instagram, you've got a YouTube channel. How do those help not only you, but me as a prospective buyer or seller?
Right. I think it's important to get to know who it is that you're going to be working with. So I put myself out there. I'm out at the restaurants enjoying the culinary scene here. I'm showing you what you get when you move to the area. And I also find that a lot of locals may not be aware of some of the other pockets of cool things around town. You never know. You may need to upsize and move to another area. And it's good to have that information. Technology is bringing a wealth of change. So you've got to embrace it. And I am excited to do that. It's been something that's allows me to be creative. It allows me to be silly and fun. And hopefully that comes across to whoever watches my videos or sees my reels on Instagram, and they get a glimpse of who I am and how I can help them.
Well, that makes a lot of sense because going through your Instagram feed, obviously real estate stuff there, but then there's just, hey, here's this restaurant, here's this event that's going on. So you're giving, if by going to your page, I'm getting a lot of different things with that. But I guess at the end of the day, it's still location. For me buying, what's the best location for me? What about for you personally? What's the location that give me some ideas of locations that you really love in the Lowcountry?
Well, some of the up and coming places that are kind of near and dear to my heart. I love what's happening in the outer edges of town. As you mentioned, tons of people are moving here. Mount Pleasant is getting pretty full, but there's still places like Allendale, McLennanville that have quiet, beautiful lifestyle with the convenience of just popping over when you need to. Out near Hollywood and Ravenel, there's some development happening there. And even in the Wando area, I know that's kind of new, and within the next couple of years, we'll see off of Clements Ferry Road, lots of development and lots of people moving there as well.
Now, I mentioned social media, the videos, the things that you post, but is the open house still important and staging a home? I would have to think that you personally would be kind of an expert in that way. Is that still a very important part of buying, selling a home?
For me, it is. I'm very tactile. I want to see and feel and put my eyes on what it is that I'm looking to purchase. Right now, with the pandemic, people have kind of slowed down on actually going out to physically visit homes. But that's why I still hold open houses. My open houses are an experience. It's going to be a little mini party when you come. I set the scene and welcome my folks and allow them to really picture themselves in the space. So open houses are important. It's a great way to, like I said, preview the home, make some comparisons, and really be sure about what you're doing.
Well, the positive energy that obviously you're offering your clientele certainly comes through in this podcast, and I know it would have to in person as well. So if you're not staging a home, if you're not hosting an open house, what's something that you enjoy doing just on your own personal time?
I found that, again, I try to take advantage of the fact that we're on the coast. When I was in Florida, it was Florida. I could drive an hour each way and get to a beach, but being able to be here and, after my work day ends, run over to Sullivan's Island to walk the beach for a little while, clear my head. That is really, really special. I also enjoy, as you probably see from my social media, I love trying new restaurants. There's nothing that I'm afraid of. And so I just love exploring and sharing that with others. I'm also very involved in the community. So you'll also see me doing a lot of volunteer work with the United Way, with various groups. I'm also a part of the Ocean Alliance with the South Carolina Aquarium. So the things that are important to me, you'll see me involved.
So Janon, let's get a little more personal then. Let's find out a little bit about you. You love to go to restaurants and things. What's your go-to meal? If you got to sit down for one thing, what are we going to be serving to you?
Mount Pleasant Grapes and Grit has never done me wrong. Delicious meals for brunch, dinner, excellent. I love the ambiance. It's one of my mom's favorites. So that's probably my go-to most often. Downtown, there's some really cool places. I've experienced the Iron Rose at the Mills House. If you want something a little fancier, but still really, really delicious and convenient to get to. There's so many places. There's even a couple places that are on my list. Like I think it's called Exo Brasserie, and their fare is Chinese. So you can find it here.
Are you someone who's queen of the kitchen? And if so, if you invited me over to your house, what's that one dish that you would serve up? Because that's your signature dish.
So many. I'm really good with pasta, but I love exploring Asian flavors. So if you open my spice cabinet, there's a ton of spices in there, but there's also a lot of soy sauces and spices and Asian cuisine that I can wow you with.
If you have a choice, dog or cat, which way are you going?
I'm with dogs, but you can find me up late at night laughing at some cat videos, though.
Guilty as charged with that as well. There's nothing better than...
I love a good funny cat video.
That's it. So one other in this line of questioning, I ask everybody who comes on the podcast this, Carolina or Clemson?
I don't. My family has both sides. Even within my household, my sister and brother-in-law are USC fans. I have family that graduated from Clemson. So I just root for South Carolina however I can.
Got it. It's a perfect way to play it, right down the middle. Now, somebody is in the market for a new home. Someone wants to sell their home. They'd like to talk to you. What's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
Best way to get in contact with me is traditionally phone call. Just give me a call. My phone number is 843-593-1554. You can also email me, janon.german@gmail.com. And like I said, I'm on Instagram, I'm on YouTube. Just get in touch however you can.
And everyone needs to know that I think you're a great follow on Instagram, but not just for real estate, because if you look at the things you've posted and everything you share, it's like, here's what's going on in the Lowcountry.
Right. And that's important. That's what, like I said, people need to know where the good things are. So whether you're moving here and you need to know where to build your life, I'm going to show that to you. And if you've lived here for tons of years, maybe you didn't know about what's around the corner. And so I think it's a really comprehensive look at the lifestyle here in Charleston.
And at the end of the day, if somebody's looking for somebody to help them out real estate wise, where you're going to shine above everybody else, I guess, personal service, right?
Absolutely. You get service for this month.
She is Charleston's Concierge Realtor. And again, check out on social media. She's really a great follow on Instagram, and she has just educated me and hopefully you as well on the way of real estate. And again, Janon, now it's a good time to buy or sell?
It's a good time to buy and sell no matter when you need to.
Check her out, Janon German. She is Charleston's Concierge Realtor. And with me, Brian Cleary, our guest today here. Thanks for joining us on the Mount Pleasant Podcast.
Thanks for spending your time with the Mount Pleasant Podcast, your community, your podcast. Listen to past and future episodes at mountpleasantpodcast.com.